Are you sick and tired of hearing Chicago Bears football talk? Well, you are in luck. We have the cure for that. Mitch, this is the most non-Bears podcast you'll find. We're talking high school football. We're talking the good stuff you want to hear about, none of the negatives. Let's get into some positive high school football talk here. Talking Illinois high school football.
If your goals are as high as you talk about, tonight's the night you go out and just take one more step.
It's a view from the West.
And it starts right now!
Welcome into View from the West podcast, the non-Chicago Bears podcast. We're talking Illinois high school football on the western side of the state of Illinois. I'm your host, Greg Armstrong, and I'm joined, as always, by a Bears fan, but not today. Not tonight. We're not talking Chicago Bears. We're moving right along. We're getting into high school football, Mitch. You're a Morrison Mustangs fan is what you are.
That's right, but I feel like we do have to issue a mea culpa here, and on behalf of Edgy Tim as well, because in the preview, one of the preseason episodes we did, we put the over/under on Bears wins at 8, and while that's still possible, it's not really that possible. So no, we do apologize for giving false hope there for the Bears, because that's just an anemic franchise, only rivaled by the Bengals at the moment. So I'm kind of surrounded by terrible football in the pro ranks.
Yeah, well, Mitch, but your Morrison Mustangs, they look good. They got a huge matchup coming up. So like I said, on the View from the West podcast, we're focused on the positives here. Mitch, before we get into it, we know who we got to thank.
Yeah, tonight's episode is brought to you by our friends at Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They provide all the same sporting goods services the big nationwide companies do, but with a faster turnaround, and their uniform pricing is a fraction of the cost you're probably used to. They offer names such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. Check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com, or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com for more information.
We love our sponsorship with Breedlove Sporting Goods. We thank them for supporting us. If you'd like to support the pod, if you'd like to support what we do here, show a little love for high school athletics, you can easily support us by going to PayPal. Search View from the West. You can head to paypal.me/viewfromwestpod. We would appreciate any support you could give along the way to help us here. Any support you can give, we would always appreciate it. Well, Mitch, let's jump right into week 6, the game we talked a lot about on the Instant Reacts podcast. Of course, we'll plug the Instant Reacts podcast. It was a full boat the other night.
Yep.
We had, you and I were on there. We had the guys from the Score, Stocking, Dazzo, Kuffler. We also had Kyle Kampmeyer from NUICfootball.com. One of the big games we talked about, maybe the biggest game we talked about, Sterling and Geneseo. Sterling gets the upset win, 13-3. I say upset because Geneseo's been playing so well. Now, Sterling has had their number in years past, but this year it really looked like it was Geneseo's turn, and Sterling does a great job defensively. They're able to slow down Geneseo. What a game. Came down to the final seconds of the game. Geneseo faced a 4th and 6 with under 15 seconds left. They were down at that point just by, I believe, 4 points? They were down 7-3.
Yep.
So they were down 7-3. They got to punch it into the end zone. They go to Jaron Neal. He gets the edge. Looks like he's about to get to the edge and get to the goal line, but comes up just short. The game-saving tackle by Cale Lettergerber. What a play. What a phenomenal finish, capped off by all Sterling has to do is run out the clock. Well, they do it in style. Joseph Holcomb runs 99 yards as time expires. I was texting back and forth with some people who were at the game, and, they said, I don't know if Joseph Holcomb needed to run all those yards. Maybe he should have went down, but he was looking around. He saw no one was near him. Mitch, you're already shaking your head. You're going to run that in.
No, you go until you're touched. That's for sure. So, yeah, it was exciting finish to a really good game. And just to back up a little bit, Sterling's coming off that loss to Princeton, a game where they really got the game kind of taken to them. And then on the other side, you have Geneseo that came into this game undefeated. And so, yeah, we thought that despite Sterling historically having Geneseo's number, that this was a year that Geneseo was going to break it. And there could be some reasoning behind that, not to speculate on any health of any player, but this was a game that Sterling really stepped up in a time when they needed to, coming into the game at 2-3. They really have to make a significant run here in the last couple weeks. And yeah, to come up with that big stop, it was close enough that the Geneseo sideline thought that they scored, and the refs were a little bit indecisive on if he got in, if he didn't. Took a couple seconds, so there's just a lot of suspense. But yes, the Sterling defense comes up, and then as you mentioned, Holcomb they take a shotgun snap, and there is no one in the middle of the field. Takes off, and on that run, doubled their offensive output up until that point in the game. So this was just a defensive battle between two really, really good defenses. Sterling had scored on a pass play to open up the scoring, and again that last play there at the end. So a great win for Sterling to remain unbeaten in the Western Big Six, and sets Geneseo back just a little bit, but there's a lot of time left for them to get things right.
We have a little historical perspective here. Matt Gingrich weighed in to let us know that Joseph Holcomb is actually not the first Sterling player to have a 99-yard touchdown run against Geneseo. So back in 1997, Jake Rodriguez did the same thing. It was in a losing effort, but it has happened before. So there you go. Almost tying history, I guess you'd say, for the longest run. So it has happened once before. And Mitch, you kind of referenced it, but AJ Weller did not play a majority of the second half in this one. So certainly hope for the best for him, and hope that it's something that was short term and that he'll be back in next week and moving down the way. He's been such an impact player and fun to watch that you want to see him on the field for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And what I didn't mean when I said that to take anything away from Sterling, because they still were holding the Geneseo offense really in check in that first half. So I don't want to take anything away from the Sterling win. It's just that, as you mentioned, AJ Weller has had such a fantastic season for this Geneseo team, and to not have him is you're playing from behind at that point. So yeah, we do hope for the best for him. We don't know anything about the injury, so we hope to see him back this week.
Yeah, just overall, just to kind of put a cap on this, really great effort by that Sterling defense. I just really impressed with, the scheming that they had, and they were ready to step up to the challenge and really stuff the run and really stop what Geneseo was going to try to do. And just, it's a Geneseo team that's obviously played really well this year. I mean, I thought that, behind Quincy, I think they're clearly the second best team in the Big Six. And now that becomes maybe a bit of a question after this victory by Sterling. So what an effort by them, and a game that they really need. It's a game that was huge for Sterling. When you start looking down the way, they're sitting at 3-3 overall right now, but they're 3-0 in conference play. So huge win for them.
Yeah, and it is a cool note in a post-game interview with Ty Reynolds from Coach Slummer. He gave a lot of credit to Donovan Burrow and the Sterling scout team kids, who really put the game plan together and helped get them ready for this. Gave them the look throughout the week that they really needed to see to really prevail. So loved that quote. Love to give the shout out to the guys behind the scenes, especially those scout team kids. Maybe not the names that always get in the newspapers or on the podcast, but play a pivotal part in preparation. So shout out to the Sterling scout team for getting the guys ready.
Yeah, that's awesome. It takes everybody. A solid win, a win like that, it takes the whole program, to buy in and to really, I guess, buy into what the program wants to do or what the team needs to do to get the job done. So really cool. Mitch, before we finish this Sterling talk, though, we need to uncover the mystery of who is Amazon admin.
In my house, it's my wife.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, me too, actually. So, okay. So on the Instant Reacts podcast, Cuff was reading off some of the names and the plays, the impact plays from the game. Yep. And at one point he referenced the wide receiver who hauled in Drew Nettleton's touchdown pass on a 4th down in the second quarter as Amazon admin. And even at the time, did you hear him say it? Because I heard it, and I
Yes.
kind of was like, I did a double take. Like, what did he say? Like,
Right.
so he
Yeah,
says,
I did. It was one of those things where like you heard it and then you questioned if you actually heard it. Like
well,
maybe you weren't paying attention or something. And you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right.
and I'll be honest, when we go through this podcast every week, how many names do we read off? I mean, each week
Right.
alone, it's somewhere maybe close to 100 names that we
Yep.
that we read. So I never want to question a name. You never know what
Right.
kids are named. So
There's probably an Amazon admin out there in the world somewhere. Sure.
it could be. So anyway, I heard it and I thought, I don't know what that is, but maybe that is the name. I've never heard of him, certainly. Well, I come to find out that a beat reporter there tweeting the game, live tweeting the game.
Ty Reynolds.
Okay, yes, it was Ty Reynolds. He did tweet out that Amazon admin was the wide receiver who caught the pass. So clearly Cuff took it from him. I'm guessing this was a victim of autocorrect. I would think that this was, we were fooled by autocorrect here. So to set the record straight, it was Mason Eamon who caught the pass from Drew Nettleton. Huge play in the game, by the way. That was, a huge score from Sterling at the time on a 4th down going to the air and a beautiful pass and catch. So congratulations to Mason, not Amazon.
It's a great nickname if you wanted to adopt one. Amazon admin Mason Eamon. I mean,
that's right.
If it is autocorrect, it's probably not the first time it's happened. So,
yep. So there we go. Thank you to Ty Reynolds for live tweeting, of course, and for keeping us on our toes there. And so
right.
And I will say that I have also been a victim of autocorrect on Twitter, where once you hit send, it's like it's already out there, and you kind of you keep, especially when you're live tweeting a game, and you just keep going on to the next thing, and you don't realize what happened. So
in the embattled history of Twitter, how they've never had an edit button is
that's true. Me. Yeah, that's true. Can you get it? Can you edit tweets now if you have the little blue check mark?
You think I pay for Twitter? No.
I'm not saying you do. I'm asking.
I have no idea.
Okay, well, we'll never find out because we're not going to pay for it. So unless we get enough support from our generous supporters out there when they send us money on PayPal. Anyway, all right, let's go down the way. Rock Island gets their first win of the season, 24-14 over United Township. Rocks get back-to-back pick 6, including a 98-yard return from Gartar. That kid's exciting to watch. And, another great play from him. And it's in a victorious effort. Congratulations to Coach Fritz and to the Rocks for getting that first victory.
Yeah, I think they were losing at the time. And then just back-to-back explosive plays that we know that Rock Island is capable of making, especially on that defense. That defense has really played well. I think we talked about that on the Instant Reacts podcast. That the Rock Island defense has played really well against stiff competition. I think, Greg, run if I'm wrong here. It might have been Stock, it might have been someone else who sent us that, like, up until last week, I think it was, that Rock Island had played, like, their opponent record was the best one in all of 7A or something.
It was Ken Jacoby from QC Sports.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Sorry, Ken.
Yeah. But the stat is incredible. I don't know if I have it right on the top.
I think at the time they had played or their opponents had 31 wins or something through 5 weeks. It was something ridiculous.
Here we go. Yes, Ken Jacoby tweeted out last week that the Rocks were 0-5, but their 5 opponents' overall record, so going into this past week, was 21-5 overall.
Mm-hmm.
And their 9 opponents for the entire season had racked up 31 wins. That was the most of any 6A school. Second place was 27. So they certainly, it looked to be a tough schedule, and it is turned out that way, as the games get played out here. So it's been a tough grind, but congratulations to the Rocks for getting victory number 1 here.
Yep.
Quincy gets the big win, 56-19 over Galesburg. They scored 28 in the first. They scored 28 in the second. So they were well on their way to victory here. Thanks to our buddy down in Quincy, Don O'Brien, for the numbers. Mitch, he sends us the stats, and when he sent us these, there were a lot of numbers to put in that email or to put in that tweet. There's a lot of statistics here. Go through the list.
Yeah, and most of these were in the first half. So Quincy racked up on the night 439 total yards. Braden Little, 15 of 17 for 269 yards. Greg, 7 touchdowns.
Yes.
What do you have last week? 6?
Yes. Now that
Yeah.
was an early candidate for our player of the week. We were really close to pulling that one.
Yep.
It's tough again, he's put up numbers every single week, and it's like there's somebody else that always pops up. So Braden, you're so close. Keep throwing the ball. You're gonna get a mini helmet.
And we'll get into that later. And I think this week's selection really, I mean, it was an incredible performance. So it's well deserved. But the past 2 weeks, all season, Braden Little has been so good. We're such a fan of his play. So hang in there. You know, you're doing great. Further down of all the other stars on the Quincy team, Dreas Rice had 156 yards and a touchdown. He also caught a couple of touchdowns for Little. Caden Johansson, Aiden Byquist, Tykel Hammers all had TD receptions. And again, a big win for yet another big win for Quincy.
Yeah, they continue to get the job done, and week in and week out, there's not even anywhere close to a sign of a letdown. They look really good. They continue to produce. So Quincy will look to remain unbeaten against Sterling. We'll talk about that in a minute here. What do you got, Mitch?
Yeah, just looking at Quincy, they have the call it hardest, I guess. They face the best opponent record the next 3 weeks. Their opponents have 13 wins. The next closest is Sterling. Their next 3 opponents have 10 wins. So Quincy's got Sterling this week, Geneseo the next, and then they play Seymour in week 9. So those are 3 really quality opponents. So a very good start of the season for Quincy. I think their hardest stretch starts this week.
I did not realize. Yeah, Muhammad Seymour is sitting there at 5-1, and they're at the end of the schedule there in week 9.
Yeah,
so
their only loss was a week 1 loss to an undefeated, I think, Morris team, and they've just been hammering people ever since. So that should be a really fun game.
Yeah, and which Morris is a whole other story. I was just talking to my dad about Morris over the weekend. Man, they play a tough schedule and they answer the call. Morris looks really good.
You are right on that. I am wrong. They played Morton, but Morton is also undefeated.
Okay, there you go. Morton is also a really good program. Maybe we'll save Morris for another time, but yeah, they're a very good program playing really well. Moline got the win via forfeit, and that was due to the Alleman game, so they could not get a rescheduled one there, so they'll take the win. But speaking of Rock Island Alleman, they played a JV game at Seneca High School. Seneca's actually had 2 forfeits this year, so 2 forfeit victories. But either way, 2 teams that have been unable to show up on a Friday night. It was their homecoming game. So credit to Rock Island Alleman for stepping up and kind of filling that void. Sure, it's not a varsity contest, but at least you had a football game on a Friday night out there in Seneca so they could enjoy their homecoming. They win the game 58-8. But either way, I think in the grand scheme of things, it's great to see Alleman competing on a Friday night. Hopefully things are building up towards getting back on the varsity level next year.
Right, and Dazzle kind of spoke to this on the Instagram Reacts that they've been in their games that they've been playing here this year. So yeah, hopefully next year they'll still have the numbers. It'll be a young team when they do come back, but yeah, great to see them putting in that right work and getting on the field under Friday lights again. So yeah, love to see that for Alleman.
Yep. Well, let's do a quick recap here, or a quick look at the Big Six standings. You got Quincy at 6-0, 4-0 in conference play. And then it gets interesting from there because you have Sterling at 3-3 overall, but 3-0 in conference play. You have Geneseo, who's 5-1. Obviously, we just said they just lost their first one to Sterling. They're 3-1 in conference play. And then you have Moline sitting at 1-2 in conference play with 3-3 overall record. So those are kind of the 4 teams still kind of up there in the mix with, a lot to play for this season. So let's look at the matchups. You got United Township playing Moline, Galesburg going up against Rock Island, Geneseo in a non-conference game against Mendota, and the big one, the marquee matchup in the Big Six, Quincy at Sterling. So Quincy's got to go on the road to a Sterling defense that really stepped up this past week and got the job done against Geneseo. Can they do it again is the question.
Yeah, this is a Sterling team, as we talked about, who is fighting, scratching, clawing for wins. They're at 3 now. They've got to get at least 2, and they play Quincy, Rock Island, and Moline. So, and even at 5-4, certainly depending on how everything shakes out, should be enough, right? It's eligible, but we've seen 5-4 teams not get in before. So you'd love to have that mindset that they need to win out here. I don't think they need to, but it's possible the way that they've been playing, the way that defense has been playing. And it starts this week if they can play spoiler at home, like you said, against a really, really good Quincy team that no one has slowed down yet. But if anyone was going to do it, it'd be the Sterling defense.
Yeah, this is I would say the end of what has been a tough stretch of games for Sterling. I mean, they've had a tough stretch all season, but when you talk about Princeton at 5-1, Geneseo now sitting at 5-1 after that loss, and Quincy obviously at 6-0. So a tough 3 games here. That they bounced back after that loss to Princeton. Can they ride the wave here? The momentum they built against Geneseo.
Now to flip it, talking about Sterling's defense, don't sleep on that Quincy defense.
Absolutely.
That Quincy defense has been really, really good all season. They're on the field a lot because the offense scores so quickly.
Yeah.
So they've got the reps, and they have not had the Moline game was close. Other than that, they really haven't been challenged because the defense plays so well. They get a lot of interceptions. They're quick. So this will be a really good battle between 2 good defenses. So maybe it comes down to which offense can score a couple more points. And it's hard not to say that that's not Quincy if you're looking at the 2 teams.
Yeah. I mean, don't you think if Sterling's going to pull an upset and win this one, don't you think they kind of have to do it in a similar fashion that they did against Geneseo? That kind of that winning ugly, grinded out defensive win?
Whatever it takes to slow down Quincy, they would have to. Yeah.
I mean, I don't see Sterling outscoring Quincy. If they get into a back and forth type of shootout, I don't see Sterling being able to keep up with it. So I think you'd almost have to do what you did against Geneseo and really trying to grind out defensively, keeping them, at bay and just being able to find points where you can.
Yep.
Well, Mitch, before we jump into the Three Rivers Athletic Conference, let's go through and talk about the state rankings as it is announced by the NUICfootball.com poll. So we contribute to that. And also Kyle Kampmeyer from NUIC Football puts together a group of panelists from around the state who are very knowledgeable on high school football. If I'm being honest, when I look at the list that he puts together, I trust it more than I trust the AP. So, we kind of wanted to, give a little shout out here. And we also wanted to, talk through it. So let's go through and we'll start in class 3A where we have Byron at number 1, 6-0. You have Montini Catholic at number 2, Princeton coming in at number 3, Williamsville at number 4, Wilmington at number 4, Williamsville at number 5, Dupec at 6, St. Joe Ogden at 7, Roxana is sitting at 6-0. They're at number 8. You have Olympia at 9 at 4-2, and you have DeCoin down south by Carbondale at 6-0 at number 10. Another few teams receiving votes: Phillips, Tolono Unity, and Mount Carmel down in Southern Illinois. So that's the 3A rankings. Looking at 2A, you have Maroa Forsyth at number 1 at 6-0. Bloomington Central Catholic will fall into class 2A. They're 6-0. Seneca at 6-0. Tri-Valley also at 6-0. Athens at 5-1. They're number 5. Number 6 is Knoxville at undefeated at 6-0. Number 7, Shelbyville. Number 8, Farmington. Number 9, Johnston City. Number 10, Rock Ridge. A couple other teams, Mater Dei and Moments, also receiving votes there. And one more to go through, class 1A. You have Lena Winslow at number 1. You have Morrison at number 2. Belleville Althoff Catholic at number 3. Forreston coming in at number 4. Camp Point Central at 5. Hope Academy out of Chicago at 6. Greenfield Northwestern at 7. Fulton, the Steamers, are at number 8. Newman Central Catholic at 9. Aurora Christian at 10. Others receiving votes: Stark County, KZ Westfield, Leroy, and Gibson City, Melvin Sibley. So there is your top 10 rankings, 3A through 1A. We'll get to 8-man a little bit later when we get into those games. But for right now, we'll start with Princeton, the Princeton Tigers. They're number 3 in Class 3A. They got the big win over Kewanee, 37-14. The 125th all-time meeting between these schools. A tight game early on. Kewanee allowed a big play over the top to Noah Laporte, but then really clamped down on defense in the first half. They played tough. They played physical defense. They were getting to the ball carrier. They were not missing that first tackle. They were really limiting what Princeton could do in that first half. Brady Clark was scrambling a lot of the time. He was trying to find time in the backfield to throw. He was an athlete. He's a playmaker. He was able to dump off a pass to Colson Wellgate, who tiptoed the sidelines to get a second quarter touchdown to tie the game at the half. The third quarter, Kewanee was really keying on Casey Etheridge all game. In that third quarter, Princeton was able to find some space with Ace Christensen. He ripped off several big plays. The Tigers capitalized on a Boilermaker turnover, and that really broke this game open in the third quarter. You know, I saw a quote from Kewanee's head coach, Matt Taylor, courtesy of Kevin Hieronymus at the Bureau County Republican. He said the second half was a different story. They did approximately what they did to Sterling last week. They ground the ball. Ultimately, they wore us out. We just didn't meet force with force. So I think that's an interesting telling quote there, that Kewanee was able to hang with them for a half. And then that Princeton power, that Princeton running game really was able to, force its way through. I was really impressed with Princeton in the second half to really, especially in the third quarter, to really jump all over this Kewanee team. And Mitch, you start going down the way, and Will Lott is a junior. Noah Laporte is a junior. Casey Etheridge is a sophomore. I believe Ace Christensen is a junior. I mean, all these guys are coming back, and they're having huge impacts here. Ryan Pearson, head coach for Princeton, told me after the game that they really didn't change anything like schematically at halftime. They just executed, and that kind of speaks to what Taylor said from Kewanee, that they kind of just finally wore them out. They were just pushing and pushing and pushing, and they finally capitalized on that big play, and they made, multiple big plays, and that was the end of this game. But what a game. Mitch, I don't know if we've talked about, have you been to a Kewanee Princeton game?
No, I don't think I ever have.
Oh man, it was great. I mean, the last few years when both these programs have been really kind of riding that wave and been playing really good football, it has been so exciting. I mean, you could tell like this game really means something to both sides. I mean, the student sections were packed. They were jacked up. The players, after every big play, you just saw the expressions on their face. You saw their mannerisms. They were jacked up. They were into it. It was a great atmosphere for high school football. And I was really impressed with, both squads in the first half, and really impressed with Princeton moving down the way to get the win here.
Yeah. As you said, kind of, it seems like since losing to Morrison, Princeton's really kind of maybe hit the reset, maybe not even hit the reset button, but they've really gone back to basics and gone back to doing the things that have won them 5 straight Mississippi titles, and now puts them in the driver's seat for 6. So, you were talking about the rankings earlier. I think I asked Kyle this on the Instant Reacts, kind of what the outlook was for Princeton. Certainly that depends on where they get seated. We know that Byron is unbelievable in 3A this year.
Yeah.
We know that Dixon is undefeated and probably pretty high ranked. They're not in 3A, but they're in the Big Northern anyway. But Montini's really good. But I think the way that Princeton's been playing, this is a team that can make yet another quarterfinal, semifinal, even push to get into a championship weekend. So again, can't look too far ahead. There's still a lot of season left here, but really impressed with how Princeton has been playing. But with Quincy too, I don't take much away from their success this year with this loss either. So I think they've got an opportunity to finish really well. Again, they're not out of the conference title yet. But ultimately at this point, where will they be seated going into the 4A playoffs? And this is a team playing like yet another team that could also make a run. So this was a great game between two rivals. Princeton had the better night, and yeah, I expect good things out of both of these teams moving forward.
Yeah, like I said, I was really impressed with Kiwani's effort, especially in that first half. It felt like they really were playing toe to toe with Princeton. In the long run, Princeton just was able to find a few holes and make a few big plays, and the game kind of got away from Kiwani in that second half, but ultimately really good. They're a good football team. That Kiwani team's a good football team. And Princeton, obviously, really good program, really good team this year as well. So excited to watch both of them down the way. I mentioned, walking the sidelines with Kevin Hieronymus. I got to tell everybody, I got to push, like, if you don't already, subscribe to Friday Night Drive and subscribe to to Kevin's work. He does a great job covering this Princeton program and covering that Bureau County area. When you subscribe to Friday Night Drive, between him and Steve Susi and all the local coverage you get, like, just from different areas around the state, money well spent. I mean, I think that's a big source of, where we get some of our information, and I love it. So anyway, just wanted to give a quick shout out to there. So
I don't think they use AI lead sports bot either. So
no, thank
old classic journalism. So yeah, we've subscribed to Friday Night Drive for a while now. A lot of guys' work that we have been familiar with. So yeah, I echo what you say, and that you should subscribe to that to get all your news.
Yep. Well, another game I believe you could have read about at Friday Night Drive. Sterling Newman gets the win 20-14 over Bureau Valley. This one was tight. Tie game 14-14, 3 minutes left. Bureau Valley driving, looking to take a lead, but that Newman defense continues to show up week after week. Carter Rude comes up with a huge play, forcing a fumble. It's recovered by Newman. Connor McBride had a big run that then sets up Rude for the go-ahead 25-yard touchdown run with under 2 minutes to play. The Newman defense stepped up once again. They get two sacks, I believe, at the end of the game on Bureau Valley to really put a cap on this one. So the 20-14 win, nice win for Newman. That puts them in a good spot here. They're now sitting at 5-1 overall.
Yeah, this was a good game, really well played by BV. We kind of thought that this one might be lower scoring. Again, kind of knowing what Newman's struggles have been offensively, but knowing what their strengths are on the defensive side of the ball. But also that BV has a really good offense that's still growing. Again, you talked about how young Princeton is. BV's even younger, I think. So a fun game to watch. Classic Newman game. You talked about the one turnover. I don't know if they had any more, but that would bring them up to at least 17 turnovers or takeaways this year. So just a really, really good defensive unit that is going to, do well by them the rest of the year, but also the rest of the regular season, and really set them up to shine come playoff time, because that's what you're going to want.
Yeah. Yep. Defense wins championships, as the old cliche goes, and Newman's got some defense.
As Newman's cliches go, or as any, Lee Wynn recently, they've had great defenses every single season. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yep. All right, a few more games to get to in the Three Rivers. Kind of a wild one here. Spring Valley Hall gets the win, 32-24 over IVC. Hall trailed 16-0 early in this one. Then in the second quarter, they scored 26 points, and they never looked back. Nice win for Spring Valley Hall. On Saturday, you had Mendota getting the win 35-14 over Riverdale. Justin Randolph completed 9 of 16 passing, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 91 yards and 2 scores on 15 carries. So that was Mendota's first win of the season. So congratulations to the Trojans there. But let's get to one of the best games of the week, Mitch.
Yep.
Erie Prophetstown 35, Orion 34. What a wild game here. Mitch, you were watching this one, I believe.
Yep.
Talk us through it. Talk us through what you saw, because I've read about it, but I want you to talk. You lived it, so.
Yeah, so I was flipping through games like I normally do on Friday, and I got to this one at 27-27. Orion takes the lead, so they're up 34-27. Flash forward a little bit then into the very last minute of the fourth quarter. So Panthers have the ball on the 43-yard line. There's 18 seconds left. They don't have any timeouts. And it's the first play of, the last 3.
Yep.
The first play of this series, Jeremiah Kochevar throws it deep, probably throws it 30 yards, let's say, in the air, and Demetri Larson comes down with it. But I wouldn't say that he goes down because he fends off 3, 4, 5 tackles and gets all the way down to, I think, the 1.
Yep.
So it's a crazy effort. So now they're on the 1, and again, I don't know how much time was left when they snapped this, but they line up. Coach Var throws a quick pass. It looks like it's a corner route, so he throws it back into the back pylon, and it's Demetri Larson once again who comes down with it. So at this point now, it is 34-33. Got a decision to make. You're on the road. You've got the momentum now. What do you do? First-year head coach. We're going for it, right? You love to see it. So Panthers come out, line up, and once again, it's Jeremiah Kochevar finds Larson on the quick out, and we retweeted this video that from the angle from that end of the end zone. It's a quick pass. Larson takes the turn, maybe one step, and dives right at the pylon, right inside it. Referee throws his hands up. Game is over. So this was a crazy ending. EP gets the walk-off win, 35-34.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that sideline angle that we tweeted out is just, it's awesome. I mean, that's what high school football is all about. I mean, The kids, Larson is diving for the end zone, gets the ball just across the goal line, right by the pylon. I'm not sure who's shooting the video, but you hear him and the players just going nuts, just ecstatic. I mean, and for that program that, the wins have not been there this year, but they're trying to build something up, and to have that kind of, have that kind of win, have that kind of memory in a season that's been, kind of had some disappointments, through the first 5 weeks. That it's really cool to see. Got a few numbers from Coach Whitebread. Kochevar was 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown, 94 yards rushing, 239 yards passing. You also had Justice Huff. He had 118 rushing yards. He also had 10 yards receiving. He had 2 touchdowns rushing. But then, man, let's go through the numbers for Demetri Larson. 75 rushing yards, 134 receiving yards, an interception, and a forced fumble. And obviously came up clutch with the 3 passes to end the game. The last 3 plays of the game that they needed, including the touchdown and the extra or the 2-point conversion. He's there to make every single one of them. Mitch, we hinted at it earlier. I think we found where our helmet's going this week.
Yeah, this is Demetri Larson's award for the week. This was one, first and foremost, an incredible performance from him. But just looking back at what it means for the program to get their first win of the year, get Coach Whitebread's first win as head coach. This was really a team that has been playing well recently. They played well against Morrison. Hung tough here with a really good Orion team and came away with an exciting victory. So a lot of factors into this. So yeah, Demetri Larson, congratulations. You are the Mathewson's mini helmet player of the week.
That is correct. So if you're looking for the perfect gift for your high school football player, check out Mathewson's mini helmets. They offer totally custom mini helmets or decals for your school. You can find them on Facebook or on Twitter. Always love them as a sponsor. And congratulations again to Demetri. You got a helmet coming your way. Really exciting, thrilling win. On the flip side, Mitch, we gotta reference it. It's a heartbreaker for Orion. I mean, it's a game that, looking down the rest of their schedule, they really needed this one. They still have playoff life, but it's, 4 losses now, sitting at 2-4 when they started 2-0. This is a tough one. This is a tough one.
Yeah, they got to win out, but they've got Sherrard coming in at 2-4, but we know that they've been playing better. Monmouth Roseville again, same thing, 3-3, and then ending the season with Riverdale. So they're not out of it. They can win all 3 of those games. We've seen Orion put up some points this year, so they really just have to again tighten up here these last 3 weeks because it's you got to win out or you're not moving on.
Yeah, a game against Sherrard. We'll talk about that in a minute here. That's coming up for Orion next week. Sherrard falls to Morrison 42-14. This was a tight game early on, but Morrison really pulled away in the second half. Shout out to Ty Taylor. He was able to give us some stats from this one. How about 494 yards of offense for the Mustangs? Mitch, they continue to get the job done week in and week out. Sherrard hung with them early, but hearing Coach Johnston on Sportsline on WRMJ on Saturday morning, he just, he referenced what we've all seen is that there's just so much team speed, and that when some of those guys get in space, you can't keep up with them. You literally can't catch them. So, another nice win for Morrison, and again, tough loss for Sherrard. They're still hanging around. They've got 4 losses now, but games become really critical.
Yeah, and like you said, it was early on. It looked like Holland Anderson was really getting the passing game going, and the Morse defense just we've seen them start slow. We saw them start slow against Erie Prophetstown. I think we've seen it in other games, but ultimately they figured out pretty quickly, and that speed and toughness really has played out every single every single game this season. So yeah, 494 yards of offense for the Mustangs. That seems like it's pretty typical these days. So yeah, they are playing really, really well heading into a big matchup this week.
So Mitch, obviously, we're giving Morrison their proper credit. We're giving them love on the podcast. You're seeing their highlights on WQAD and everywhere else. But how about getting on ESPN? How about NFL's Sunday Countdown? Getting in on the Morrison Mustang love here. So Sunday morning, I'm sitting around, I'm watching NFL Sunday Countdown with my dad and my son. And all of a sudden, there's Morrison, Illinois. They're talking about the Morrison Mustangs. Chase Newman grabs the spotlight literally in the You Got Mossed countdown. I believe he came in at number 3 on the countdown. So
3 or 4,
3 or 4. So congratulations, Chase Newman. It was a play where, for all the, what the young kids say, you got mossed, right? The Randy Moss going up over the top of somebody.
Yeah, I think you can say that now, and everyone kind of knows. Every football fan knows what you're talking about. So, yeah, I can say with pretty well certainty that that's the first time that any Morrison player has ever been mentioned on ESPN. Unless
come on, Mitch, your highlights were making ESPN back in the day.
They were put on ESPN the 8 at 3 a.m. when no one was watching. So. Yeah, this is cool. I shared this around to some Morrison friends, and the community's loving it as they have been all season. So yeah, this is pretty special that anybody, not just Morrison, not just saying it because it's Morrison, any one of our teams and anybody at all that gets on ESPN, especially that segment.
Yep, pretty cool.
So yeah, awesome moment, good catch by you, and I love the video.
Yeah, well, not great catch by me, it's great catch by Chase Newman. But how about True Grit, our buddy True Grit from Morrison out there, Greg Pruis, grab it.
He's coming for your job. Yeah, he's coming for your job.
He's got some skills there, getting the video, kept everything in frame, looking good. So yeah, I think he runs the chain gang though, so you better make sure he's keeping those chains updated.
Well, that's even more impressive then.
I know. I'm never running the chain gang while I'm shooting videos. So
I'll tell you what. Did you watch speaking of ESPN? Did you watch the Toy Story version of Jaguars and Falcons on Sunday morning?
I did not get a chance. Like I said, I was back in Ottawa, and I was busy, distracted with some kids, and no, I did not get. I should, although if I was watching the kids, I should have turned that on. Is what I should have done.
Let me just say
on me.
Let me just say this.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Well, better than the Nickelodeon slime game or whatever they did last.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. And truthfully, it's probably the only way I would watch a Falcons Jaguars game. You might as well put a little fun into it. But yeah, I mean, it was certainly the kids loved it because of everything Toy Story, all the animations that they had, and really the technology they had to make it look or to do it in real time was amazing, incredible. But that when you're talking about Chain Gang, they had Slinky Dog.
Yes, perfect.
As the chain, it was awesome. It was great. So they just had little knickknacks like that onto the presentation. So if we could get one of these games in a Toy Story format, I'd watch that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Man, I feel that's a parent fail on me. I had the little kids with me. I should have turned on the game.
They did like little trivia during the commercial breaks. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
the kids. My girls love football anyway, so they really enjoyed watching it that way.
Yeah, I saw somebody said that they need to start doing the Toy Story game for the Iowa Hawkeyes because that's the only way it would be watchable. So,
Well, it'd have to be overplayed over like Benny Hill music or something.
that's right. That's right.
So,
All right, one more game to get to in the track. Rock Ridge on Saturday gets the win over Monmouth Roseville 28-13. Cullen Schweigen, another good afternoon for him, threw 2 touchdown passes, ran for a touchdown. He connects on 2 touchdown passes to Landon Wheatley. They have a good connection. That's been going all year long. They continue to, to connect and make big plays. Landon Bull had a heck of a day. He leads the way in the trenches for the Rock Ridge Rockets rushing attack. He had an interception that was returned 50 yards, didn't get the touchdown on that one. He had a scoop and score that was called back. So I saw the picture of it. It was awesome. He's well on his way to the end zone. It was a foul, a flag thrown well away from him. So unfortunately, it doesn't count. But we've talked a little bit about it over the years here on the podcast. I'm really good friends with Landon's dad, Nick Bull. Nick Bull was a former photographer at KWQC when you were interning.
Yep.
So I've heard stories, I've heard legend of what we've come to call the Rambling Bull. When Nick Bull had a scoop and score, I believe it was against Sherrard on George Pratt Memorial Field. And I went to, actually one time I was on a news story and I went through the Alito Times Record archives.
Yeah.
And I found the article where it referred to Nick Bull scooping and rambling into the end zone. So that's where we got the Rambling Bull reference. So I thought we had another Rambling Bull. We'll say in my mind, in our world, it counts. We'll give Landon Bull credit for it. So yeah. Well, great effort by him. Great effort by the Rockets. Big win. They continue to get the job done. They're now sitting at 5-1. Yeah, they lost that first one and they've been rolling since then. Well, let's get into. Mitch, you had the standings right in front of me. I didn't even look. See. Anyway, let's get into.
I didn't update them from Saturday though, so that's on me.
Okay. Well, let's get into the standings that were right in front of my face that I didn't look at. On the Mississippi side, Princeton sitting at 5-1. You have Kewanee also at 5-1, but Princeton's undefeated in conference play, whereas Kewanee now has the 1 loss. Bureau Valley is at 3-3 overall. They're 2-2 in the conference. You have Newman at 5-1. They are 1-1 in conference play.
Yep.
And then Hall at 3-3, but 1-2. And Mendota is now sitting at 1-5 overall, but their 1 win came outside of, their divisional side. So they're still 0-3 on their side of the conference. On the Rock side of things, you have Morrison, who is undefeated, like we referenced. They're 6-0 and 4-0 in conference play. Rock Ridge, 5-1 overall. They're 4-0 in conference play. That's a matchup to watch for this week. Monmouth Roseville, 3-3 overall, 2-2 in conference play. Sherrard, 2-4. They're 1-2 in conference play. Erie Prophetstown, 1-2 in conference play. Orion's 0-3 on their side of the division conference play. 2-4 overall, like we referenced, and Riverdale is 0-6. So looking at week 7, Kewanee at Monmouth Roseville. Bureau Valley takes on Princeton. Mendota at Geneseo. Hall at Sterling Newman. Erie Prophetstown at Riverdale. Morrison takes on Rock Ridge. I believe that's at Rock Ridge, correct?
Is it?
I
think so.
It is at Morrison.
At Morrison, okay.
Yep. So Morrison is at home for that one against Rock Ridge, and Orion at Sherrard. So let's start there, because when we're talking, playoff outlook, the playoffs start right now for Orion and Sherrard. Battle of 2 and 4 teams. They need to win out to make that playoff slot. So here we go. This is a rivalry game, and it's a lot on the line here in week 7.
Yeah, two good quarterbacks. Kel Filler at Orion and Holland Anderson at Sherrard. So, looking at at how these teams have been playing recently, I think you give the edge to Sherrard maybe in this. Just again, the past couple of weeks, result wise, and just how they've looked. Been impressed with Sherrard. They had that win against Riverdale, but they played really hard against Rockridge the week before, and they started well against Morrison. Whereas Orion, I think now has lost 4 in a row, I think it is. So
yeah, Orion was 2-0, and they've lost now 4 in a row.
Yeah, so it's certainly been a tough stretch for Orion. So yeah, but most importantly, no matter what has happened in the past 6 weeks, both teams have to win out if they want a chance into the playoffs. So we will have one team here be eliminated essentially. So yeah, in terms of what maybe is on the line, well, I don't know if I'd go that far, I guess, but it's important regardless. With 2 teams just trying to get into the playoffs. Yeah.
Yep. So I think when you look at it, you go back a couple weeks and Sherrard was right there, was right in the mix with Rockridge. They almost pulled that game out. They fell a little bit short. They were able to then get that win over Riverdale, and then they fall short against Morrison. When you look at the opposite side, for Orion, they played Rockridge, lost 54-20, and gave up a lot of points early in that one. That was never really, a game that Rockridge really jumped out quick. So, when you look at a common opponent there, it's kind of easy to see why you'd maybe give the favor, say that Sherrard comes in as the favorite in this one. What I thought was interesting is listening to Chip Filler's comments on Sportsline on WRMJ. He kind of joked, but I think he was kind of, being serious too, that this week at practice, he's almost going to be more of a psychologist than a football coach, because more importantly than getting your team physically ready, maybe getting your team back mentally ready after such a tough loss, after such a hard way to lose against Erie Prophetstown. But I guess when you look at it that way, if you can get your kids, get them in the right headspace, does that spark that fire? Does that light that fire to say, we're not going to be that team. This is not going to happen to us. That wakes you up. It was a tough loss, but maybe that sparks that fire and you come out firing here against Sherrard. Yeah.
I mean, you got to try anything, outside of the ordinary, anything unconventional, anything that you think you can give your team an edge. So yeah, we'll see if it works for Orion. So yeah, looking forward to seeing who comes out on top in this one.
Yeah. Quickly, let's look down the way. So you referenced Orion has Sherrard this week. They have Monmouth Roseville at home in week 8, and they have Riverdale at home in week 9. So like you said, there is certainly a chance there. They need this, they need every one of these wins, but it starts with the game against Sherrard. And, that week 8 matchup against Monmouth Roseville won't be much easier. But man, if you're able to get those 2, then you're looking at Riverdale in week 9 at home. So, there's the path for them for Sherrard. They have Orion this week, Erie Prophetstown on the road, and then Monmouth Roseville at home. So Monmouth Roseville, we'll talk about, they have a matchup this week against where they at Kewanee. So they have a big one this week, and they're sitting at 3-3. It's a pretty important game for them, but they'll be in the mix here because they have Sherrard and Orion both left on the schedule. So big game for Monmouth.
All 3 of those teams just jockeying and playing each other, trying to get in.
Yeah, a lot of exciting games down the way. Monmouth Roseville and Kewanee, which team is going to bounce back here? Both teams looking for a win. Monmouth Roseville, you might say, needs the win a little more because they're sitting at 3-3. So to keep their, playoff hopes or their playoff seeding alive, this is a big game for them. But how about Morrison hosting Rockridge?
Yep.
This should be a good one.
Yeah, this will be, I think, a really good one. 2 of the best teams here in the Rock, both offensively and defensively. Certainly the way that Morrison has played all year has been impressive. Certainly they put up a lot of points on offense, but that defense has only allowed 2 scores outside of the Princeton game. They've only allowed no more than 2 scores per contest, and certainly each of the last 4 weeks the highest team was Orion with 14 points. So that defense keeps teams in check, and that offense has just really not been slowed down at all this season, other than the Princeton game. But since Rock Ridge had that first week loss to Newman, who has turned out to be a very good team, they haven't really been stopped either. I mean, they certainly haven't been stopped. They've won 5 in a row, but they had that close win against Sherrard, that last second win against Sherrard, and then this a close game here this week with Monmouth Roseville. So they've been battle tested, whereas Morrison has kind of breezed through it. But these are two teams that we've been high on the past couple of weeks. I was high on Rock Ridge coming into this year. I thought that they would go 8-1 or 9-0 or 8-1. Still a possibility. I was certainly underselling what Morrison did this year, but I think these are two similar teams, and really looking forward. It's too bad that they only play once, because I think that this would be a game that you could get excited about. If they were to ever rematch in the playoffs. We know that that's not possible, but yeah, this is a big game. A big game for Morrison, certainly, to remain undefeated, to continue to have a high seeding in the 1A playoffs. That way you don't have to run into a Lee win further than you need to. And for Rock Ridge just to continue playing well and hopefully, put their name at the top of the Rock standings.
Yeah. When I start looking at this matchup, I look back at the Rock Ridge effort defensively against Sherrard. It was a back and forth game, and Sherrard was having a lot of success, was having success in the air against this Rock Ridge team. They were able to move the ball, but they really weren't able to do it on the ground. So I think the question becomes, can Rock Ridge slow down this Morrison rushing attack? I mean, I think we've seen that, they can make plays when they need to through the air. Sherrard's a good passing team, and they had success, but when they needed to make a play, Rock Ridge was able to make a play defensively, stopping them passing wise. Can they slow down a team like Morrison running the ball? Because that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother factor that you didn't have to worry about, or you didn't worry about as much in that Sherrard matchup.
Right. And I think too, though, the way that Colton Bielema has been directing that Mustang offense, he's a pretty efficient passer. I think he's over, I don't know, 400 yards passing, and he's probably close to 10 touchdowns. So Sean McQueen, I think, had a receiving touchdown on Friday night. So you talk about stopping the run, but they've proven that they can sling it too. So this will be a good matchup with two good quarterbacks. And like we said, two good offenses. So yeah, it might come down to the defenses here and who can stop the other one.
Yeah, I think, for Morrison, can they disrupt what Schweigen and that offense is going to want to do? Will Schweigen have enough time to make those plays? Early in the season when Rock Ridge struggled, it was because Newman was getting into the backfield and really disrupting what Rock Ridge was going to do. Now, keep in mind that week 1 matchup seems like a lifetime ago. I think this this Rock Ridge offense has made leaps and bounds of improvement since then. But that being said, that was what Newman was able to do. Can Morrison disrupt, get into the backfield of this Rock Ridge offense? That would go a long way in them getting the win here, I think, for, their defensive effort.
Right. And again, ultimately, I think the winner of this game will be the Rock champion this year.
Yeah, I would say that as well. Yep. So, Mitch, when you're looking at Morrison and Rock Ridge battling, and you have Orion and Sherrard, of course, WRMJ will be covering both of those games. Jim Taylor, I believe, will be at the Morrison Rock Ridge game, and Ty Taylor, his son, will be at the Orion Sherrard game. So I think for the first time on the Instant Reacts podcast, we're going to do a little father-son. The Taylors are both going to be on the Instant Reacts podcast this week, I believe. So
love it. Yeah, it'll be great to have them on. And as you mentioned, they'll be bringing perspective from two different games, and you'll probably either go to one of them or a different game, and I'll try and watch one of the other games that's going on. So we'll have good coverage, and good to have those guys and get them on the usually pretty late Instant Reacts podcast.
Yeah, I gave him the warning that it gets going a little late. So I think they're in for it though. They're game. So
yeah, maybe pick a game closer than Princeton this week.
Hey, you told me that was the game to go to.
No, don't even start. No. Don't even blame me for that.
All right. Well, before we jump into the Lincoln Land Conference, let's take a quick break to thank some sponsors. Brink Sportswear offers totally custom made-to-order football uniforms that allow coaches and athletic directors to take control of their brands. The uniforms are available in sublimated and tackle twill. They offer free digital mock-ups, free shipping on team orders, and free physical samples before you buy, so you know exactly how you're spending your program's money. Uniform sets start at $99 for sublimated and $120 for tackle twill. You can find them on Twitter or go to brinksportswear.com. View from the West podcast is also sponsored by the Cupcake Cartel, gourmet cupcakes that are made to order. Over 40 flavors, including wedding cake, lemon blueberry, strawberry milkshake, snickerdoodle, and Oreo. Perfect for weddings, birthdays, showers, fundraisers, or any event. You can find the Cupcake Cartel on Facebook. We thank them for their support. It's all business in the LLC, the Lincoln Land Conference. We'll start on the big side of things. Knoxville continues to impress. They get the win 42-12 over Illini West. Nolan McClay, 236 yards, 4 touchdowns. Mitchell Parrish with 97 yards, and also Bo Laws with 80 yards. So another great effort here. But Mitch, if we're going to be giving credit to the running backs, we got to give a shout out to the boys up front too.
Oh yeah.
If you're running an offense like Knoxville, you can't just have running backs. You got to have a line to get the job done. So let's go through the names here. We're giving a shout out to the offensive line.
Yeah, the big fellas up front. Dalton Hutchinson, Jacob Thorpe, they kind of anchored the line there at the tackle position. Joe Wall, Adam Carter are the guards. And Trenton Kurgan, hope I'm saying your name right, Trenton, is the center. And then you got Jacob Morris, Jay Durham, Corey Stearns. They're the tight ends. So all the big fellas up front leading the way for McClay, Parrish, Laws, that whole offense. They've been doing it all season. You know, maybe not the same players, but that same unit's been doing it for the past couple of years for the Blue Bullets. So they're doing things right. Love to see this offense really operate at full capacity. Love it when we don't pass. So all the credit to the big fellas up front.
Man, I saw it firsthand a couple weeks ago, and it's true. I mean, Nolan McClay and the rest of them are getting some huge holes to run through, and they're dynamic playmakers. They're not missing the hole, and when they get to it, they're gone. They're going. So yeah, that line is getting the job done for sure.
At the end of the year, I want to see between Knoxville and Lena Winslow, who has thrown the least amount of passes and who had more rushing yards, because I think it'll be pretty close.
Ooh, yeah, that'll be a fun one to look at for sure. Yeah.
I don't know if is there any other team that I'm missing that might not throw that much?
Forreston doesn't hardly throw at all.
That's true.
They're not.
Also,
I don't know.
Rushing yards.
I don't know that they're racking up as many yards as the other two, but they definitely are not throwing. So
I'm gonna figure out an award.
There you go.
And I'm going to give it to the quarterback who has the least amount of passing attempts this year.
Yeah.
A starting quarterback
Okay.
on a winning team that has the least amount of passing attempts.
We have to figure out like how many, like there has to be a threshold of like certain amount of plays they were in on, like certain amount of snaps they took. I don't know if we can figure that out, but yes. Yeah. We'd be able to know who started. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll gauge it. We'll talk to the coaches and figure it out.
Love it. All right. Well, Knoxville is looking really good. The other team looking really good on that Lincoln Land prairie side, or the big, large side of things of the Lincoln Trail Prairie Land, is Farmington. Farmington gets the 28-6 win over Macomb. Lane Wheelwright, 105 yards rushing, 112 passing. Logan Utt, 134 yards rushing as well. So, Mitch, we're inching closer to that Week 9 matchup, Farmington and Knoxville.
Yep.
They got to continue to get the job done, but that's a marquee matchup that I hope we get to see.
Yeah, and I think Farmington's got a tough one this week. Certainly playing a smaller school at Antelope Weatherfield, but still playing a good school. And Knoxville, West Hancock this week, and then Fulton in Week 8. That'll be a sneaky good game. But yeah, I think we could be headed towards 2 8-0 teams there in Week 9. That would be a lot of fun.
Yep. Well, let's keep moving down the way here. Mercer County gets the much-needed victory, 20-12 over Elmwood Brimfield. I listened to head coach Tanner Matlick on Sportsline on WRMJ on Saturday morning. He was happy with the way his team had perseverance. They battled through this one. Tannen Whitehall, huge game, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns, also had a fumble return for a touchdown. So he really, was leading the way in scoring for this team. Matlick was also quick to credit Bodie Solomon for knocking the ball loose, which led to Whitehall scooping it up for the touchdown. So great effort by the Golden Eagles here, and they get the much needed win. They're now sitting at 3-3 overall with, some important matchups left that, could go either way.
Yeah, looking at what they've got, Illini West, tough game against Macomb, and a always dangerous West Hancock team who just got their first win of the year. So yeah, again, one of those situations where this was a much needed win, and now it's just maybe slightly more manageable because you only need 2 out of the 3, hopefully. But I do think that they have the opportunity to go 3-0 here these next couple of weeks. Now they're playing 2 teams that are also in that same predicament in Illini West and Macomb. So a lot to be played for between these 3 teams here in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say that this season so far, with the inconsistency, it hasn't necessarily gone the way that Mercer County wanted it to. I think they had some high hopes, but either way, you still have a lot to prove here. And I think a big part of, them proving it is Mercer County getting healthy. They've been dealing with injuries this season. A lot of teams deal with injuries, but I think they've had more than their fair share. But Peyton Sedam was back on the defensive side of the ball for this win over Elmwood Brimfield. And, Coach Matlick really credited him for being kind of that quarterback on the defensive side of the ball. He was out against Knoxville, so it was important to have him back in the mix for this win over, Elmwood Brimfield, but also moving down the way. So I think the more they get healthy, I think that goes a long way for this Mercer County team. But I'm interested to see if they can prove themselves. These games are, against good teams, then they could prove that they're one of those teams that belongs in the playoffs here. So I'm excited to see how it works out. The team you just referenced, West Hancock, gets their first win of the season, a big one, 67-8 over LVC. Mitch, our guy Gavin Grothaus, huge game. Read through his numbers.
Yeah, 14-17 for 226 yards and 6 touchdowns. Also added 62 yards and another touchdown on the ground. 7 touchdowns in all, leading West Hancock to their first win on the year. So yeah, we've been really impressed with Grothaus all year. His numbers are really, really good. His touchdown to interception ratio was a little tight there, but this one really separated it out. So always good to see that. We've been impressed with West Hancock. They just haven't gotten the wins. So good to see them get on the board here.
Yep. Looking at the small side of things here in the LLC, the marquee matchup from last week, Stark County gets the 24-14 win over Rova Williamsfield. Adrian Manzano hits a 22-yard field goal to take the lead early in the fourth quarter before Luke Rewert's touchdown would seal it. The Rebels now kind of the clear top of the LLC small side. They've already got wins over Rova Williamsfield and Anawan Weathersfield. Just a great season for the Rebels continues on.
Yeah, we talked about it on the Instant Reacts that we maybe didn't give them enough credit. We were high on Rova Williamsfield, deservedly so. We were high on Anawan Weathersfield, deservedly so. So we thought that those 3 teams would kind of make up the top 3 of this division, but we were sleeping, right hand up. We were sleeping on Stark County, I think, this year. So all the credit to Coach Nord. Looking at what they've got, I think they've got a chance to go 9-0, and kind of in that same predicament as Morrison, trying to get undefeated as you go into the 1A playoffs, because the higher seed you can get, right, you're going to be positioned a little bit better to make a run. But at the end of the day, too, there's going to be so many good teams in that division, in that bracket. But put your 9-0 record on there, you can compete with anybody. So yeah, good to see. This was a hard fought win. They came back in this one. I think they were down 14-10, I think, on the road. So yeah, great win for Stark County.
Yeah, Mitch, I'm going to say Stark County came, I believe, number 11. They were just short of the NUIC top 10. That, in my mind, they're in the top 10 with wins like you referenced.
Yeah.
To me, in Class 1A, they're in the top 10 in the state. I've had them in there for several weeks, and they validated it. They proved it with this win over Rova Williamsfield. So, I want to make sure that I reference that they're in my top 10 for sure.
Yeah, personally, I don't remember, so I don't want to say anything. But yeah, one of the one of the best defenses here. We've
Yeah.
talked about that before, that, there's been some talk of the quality of defense that Stark County has. They haven't given, or sorry, they've given up a little bit more points than anyone Weathersfield has, but I think that they've scored defensively more times, pick sixes, fumbles, whatever it may be. So yeah, this is, again, we talked about it with Newman. You're going to want to have a good defense in 1A, and Stark County has it.
Well, you referenced, Stark County's defense, and then you mentioned Anawan Weathersfield. I think that's what stands out to me about Stark County's defense is they were able to slow down Zeb Rashid, which almost nobody else has been able to do. So in my mind, that's what really kind of separates them defensively, is efforts like that. So go ahead.
I was just to say also, those numbers it helps when Anawan Weathersfield has shut out their last 3 opponents.
Well, yeah, they're on a roll. Yeah, we'll get into that. Actually, that's a good segue. Anawan Weathersfield got the win last week, 42-0 over Havana. Zeb Rashid, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dylan Ori had 110 on the ground and a touchdown, plus 60 yards passing and a couple more. So, don't sleep on Anawan Weathersfield here. This is a team that fell 1 point short at home against Stark County. They went for 2 in that game and didn't get it. And here they are, though. They're absolutely on a roll. 35-0 a couple weeks ago against Monmouth United, 42-0 over A-Town, and now 42-0 again over Havana. So the last 3 weeks, they're cruising.
Yeah, last 3 weeks they've been cruising, but their last 3 weeks that they have on the schedule are their hardest. They have 15 opponent wins yet to play.
Yeah.
Farmington at 6-0, Rovo Williamsfield at 5-1 before ending with Princeville at 4-2. So they've played great. They are 5-1, eligible for playoffs, will probably get in, even if they were 5-4. I'm just saying that as reference. But you've got your 3 hardest games here. So how good are you, right? Go out there and prove it. Zeb Rash has been playing really well. Obviously, we just talked about that defense with 4 shutouts out of their 6 games. So they're going to need both of those, aspects along with the rest of the team here in these next 3 weeks.
Yep. Well, let's keep going down the way. A couple more scores for us. A-Town gets the upset win over United, 42-22. That's their first win of the season. So, man, Mitch, we were talking about United getting those first 2 victories, and they were sitting at 2-0. They lost to Rovo. They had a tough stretch there, Rovo Williamsfield and Anawan Weathersfield. But then when you started looking at, they fell short against Princeville, and now they fall short against A-Town, and here we are staring at 2-4. It just, all of a sudden, it just went quick where it was, from 2-0 to 2-4.
Yeah, but ultimately a great win for A-Town, a team that's in desperate need of one. It was their first one of the year. They had been shut out 3 times coming into this game. So for them to put up 42, Coach Quinn really got everything put together here on Friday night. So great win for A-Town, and yeah, for United to have started the way that they did. Now they're sitting at 2-4. Now they've got their backs up against the wall and looking at just what they've got left. It's possible, but they're staring at Stark County in week 9. So
yeah, I would say so. Good call for giving credit to head coach Rick Quinn and A-Town. Rick Quinn's been around a long time, and year in and year out, there's some years they don't always have the numbers, or there's up and down out in A-Town, but he's always proven himself to be a good coach, and to get the win here, I think is a nice win for them. Hopefully you can build some momentum, if not for this year, if for down the road. So
yep.
Mitch, and this A-Town win kind of spoiled the party for United here. They were honoring the 1983 Yorkwood Golden Bears. Yep. Arguably one of the greatest 1A football teams ever assembled. I don't know about arguably. This is some pretty impressive stuff. All right, let's go through. We've talked about a lot of good 1A football in this area on this podcast, but let's go through these numbers here. They were 13-0, including 11 shutouts, which is a state record. No touchdowns were scored on them from the line of scrimmage all season. There was a kickoff and a punt return that they gave up. They only allowed 813 yards for the entire season. That's 9th best in IHSA history.
So how is that only the 9th best?
I would have to look it up, I guess. Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. So like I said, arguably the best, but Sean Temple, sports director at WMOI and WRAM in Monmouth, he sent out the tweet. He says there is no argument. This is the greatest 1A football team of all time. So it's hard to argue.
Bears info, Yorkwood.
I love it. I think somewhere in my closet, I have a Yorkwood Golden Bears football jersey.
How about that?
Yeah. So fun story. Several years ago, United High School held like a garage sale, and they were selling off a bunch of old jerseys. So United is, turned into Yorkwood, then consolidated with United when Warren and, Yorkwood and all them became United. And Nick Bull and Dan Pearson went out there and picked me up a Yorkwood Golden Bears football jersey. And I believe I have an Alexis Cardinals 90s like shooting warm-up, which is really sweet, by the way. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. My wife always looks at me sideways like, why do we have these things? And she doesn't understand. She doesn't get it.
She isn't up on the 1983 Yorkwood Golden Bears history?
No, I need to tell her these stats. Maybe that would.
Come on, Beck.
So, all right. Few more scores here. Princeville gets the big win, 34-32 over South Fulton. I say big because they're now 4-2 overall. Yep. And Mitch, they're kind of a sneaky 4-1 in conference play. I don't think we necessarily had that on our radar a few weeks ago.
No, I don't think so. We knew that they are always just kind of hanging around these games, but 4-1 in conference play, but their last three, Stark County, Rushville Industry, and Anawan Weathersfield. So they still have two. Not to say Rushville Industry won't be a tough game because they've been playing well, but you're playing two of the top teams in Stark County and Anawan Weathersfield, still. So can they get one there to get into the playoffs or become playoff eligible? Certainly the way that they've been playing. So yeah, another good solid season for the Princes.
Yeah. And I want to do a public, a public cry here, a public plea. If anyone has contacts with Princeville, if anyone can get us information either weekly or just some statistics, we'd love to know some names, some impact players from Princeville. It just seems like we can never get a hold of anybody to find out information.
Yeah, they're usually an SOS tweet on Friday nights looking for a score, and we do get them. So someone out there has the Princeville scores every week. Someone has them. So I don't know if they're hawking, listening to the radio and they overhear it, or if they have direct information. But yeah, we have struggled for years to get anything out of Princeville.
So yeah, if you know anything, you got any info on that sounds bad. If you know anything, please
please tell me,
because we know nothing. So no, but if you have any information on Princeville, we'd love to be able to promote the program. They're playing well right now. So all right, last one. Hayworth gets the 42-22 win over Rushville Industry. So let's look through it here. Let's start on the big side of things. Like we said, Knoxville and Knoxville and Farmington both up top, undefeated at 6-0 each. Macomb 3-3 overall, 3-2 in conference play. Mercer County 3-3 overall, 2-2 in conference play, and Illini West 3-3. They're 2-1 over, 2-3. So many numbers here, Mitch. So many numbers to get through here.
Yeah.
But that's the look there. I think that Knoxville and Farmington, like we said, they're on that crash course to hopefully play in week 9. If they're undefeated, I think that'd be very exciting football for this conference. But you got Macomb, Mercer County, and Illini West. A lot still to be decided there on who's going to the playoffs and who's going to get those, kind of prove it wins in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. And, teams that we were talking about that still have to play each other. So Mercer County and Macomb still have to play each other. Looking at what Macomb has left, they've got, that's probably their toughest game. They've got Elmwood, Brimfield, and Havana. So they could get to 5 no matter what happens in that Mercer County game. And who was the third team you said? I'm sorry.
Illini West.
Illini West. So they've got big matchup here with Mercer County, but then they've got West Hancock, and then they've got Central A&M, who appears to be having a down year. So all three of those teams could still get in. This game here against Mercer County for Illini West, and then certainly the week 8 between Mercer County and Macomb might play into that. But the other 2 weeks for each of those 3 teams, I think, are winnable games. So they could somehow all be getting in at 5-4. Maybe one gets in at 6-3. But I think all three teams are still, even though they all play each other, they still have a shot to get in.
Yep. Let's look through the matchups here then. Week 7, Mercer County plays Illini West, which you just referenced. Elmwood Brimfield goes on the road to Macomb. Farmington is at Anawan Weathersfield. Mitch, that's a game on my radar. I've been to Anawan Weathersfield once this year.
Yeah.
But that's a game that kind of intrigues me as maybe a stopping point. Did we say Kewanee is at home? Do we remember?
Checking.
In the meantime, West Hancock plays.
They are at Monmouth Roseville.
Okay, so that I know Stark County is at home. We'll get to that in a minute. So maybe you can go Stark County to Anawan Weathersfield. That's not a bad trip. Trip. So anyway, West Hancock plays Knoxville, and the LVC Co-op is going on the road to Oblong. And Mitch, I'll be honest, I do not know where Oblong is at.
Nope. I don't think they've won a game. So I do not know what co-op that is.
Okay. If I had to speculate, I believe Oblong is in the southern kind of eastern part of the state, would be my guess.
Because they play like O'Fallon, Cahokia, Collinsville, Carbondale. So yeah, they must be down in that St. Louis-y area.
They are winless. They were also winless last year. They do not score a lot of points. Also,
I rattled off the exact wrong opponents that they play. So I was talking about Granite City, but looking at wherever Oblong is.
Yep.
Yeah, I have no idea. They play two teams from Indiana and IVC here, LVC here.
Okay. So maybe I was right, because Casey Westfield is on the eastern part of the state. And if they're playing teams from Indiana, that would also indicate that they're on the eastern part of the state. So, Mitch,
either way, they have scored 6 points in the last 5 weeks. Yeah. So, LVC, we know that they've been struggling. So, one team here is going to come out on top.
Can we get back to how I'm a pretty smart guy and I knew that Oblong was on the eastern side of the state?
Yes, your knowledge of Illinois geography is very good.
I tell you what, though, high school football will do that to you. I can tell you.
You've seen many roads in your day, right?
All right. Well, let's look at more trails, more roads, more trail. The Lincoln Trail. A-Town is going up against Havana, so the Tornadoes have a chance to get 2 wins in a row here. I think
they have a chance to get 3 wins. Looking at week 8. So yeah, A-Town might be making a little run here.
Yep. South Fulton goes on the road to United. Rovo Williamsfield is at Rushville Industry, and Princeville is at Stark County. That Princeville-Stark County matchup's interesting. Can Princeville, pull off what would be the upset here? It's a tough road test, but Stark County's been playing really well. This is an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I think so. We talked about the other 3 teams before that are all 3-3, but so looking at the top, I guess, and certainly we're going large school versus small school here, but Farmington and Anawan Weathersfield, I think, is just intriguing, right? Just how good is Anawan Weathersfield playing at home against a bigger team? So, I don't know if we'll see many surprises here this week, but again, Princeville could be playing spoiler at Stark County. They certainly can, the way that they've been playing.
Yeah, I think it's all about at this point, Stark County getting continuing to get the job done. To win the games ahead of them on their schedule. Like you said, there's potential for them to win out. And if they do, they really set themselves up in a nice position in what will inevitably be a gauntlet of a 1A North bracket. So It's great to see a program like Stark County, kind of back up to where they had been for years traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it the other day. I think that, so I've been covering football in this area since 2005. And I want to say Jade Nord is about the only head coach that has been at the same school the entire time. I guess Larry Johnson from Geneseo would be another one.
Yeah.
But I was really trying to rack my brain to think of any other coaches that go back to 2005 that have been at the same school the entire time. It's one of few. So
Rick Aaron.
What's that?
Rick Aaron.
Sure. Yep. And honestly, I guess when I think about, I wasn't being from the Quad Cities area, I guess I wasn't going up that close to Rockford for a long time. This podcast brings us out that way, certainly.
Right.
So, good call on that one. Yeah. So anyway,
Anarchy at Forston?
No, they had a couple, at least one other head coach when they won their state titles.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, I've always been, always liked, my interactions with Coach Nord, and it's good to see this program, like I said, back up at this, high level, playing really well.
Their first 6-0 start since they went to the state final, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I think a few weeks ago we talked about any win they had from that point was, this first time since, would that have been 2015?
I think it's 2013 or 2015. Yeah.
And see, now you're going to put me on the spot and look it up. Let's see. 2015. Yes, they were in the state championship game against Arcola. They beat the Marquette Crusaders in the state semifinals, 10-7 on a very snowy.
Ooh, a snowy game.
That was a crazy weekend. We're going to go off on a tangent here. It was a game that was scheduled to be at Stark County obviously on a Saturday afternoon, and it snowed a ton overnight in that morning. And they tried to clean off the field, and it just wasn't going to happen. It got so muddy, and they couldn't get a game ready, and so they moved it to Dunlap, Illinois, because Dunlap had turf. So it was moved to a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon. But when people got there, they had not been cleaned off yet. So Dunlap had the same amount of snow as the day before, but they hadn't cleaned it. So they had to get, shovels and tractors and stuff out there to clean it off. It was a wild scene. It was a great game. And I will always say, that's one of the hardest interviews I've ever had to do. Because I like I said, I have a lot of respect for Coach Nord and the way he leads this program. But I just saw my alma mater, Marquette, lose 10-7. And I'm just like, man, they were so close to going to a state championship game.
Yeah.
And I have to interview Coach Nord about how excited he is to, take his kids to a state championship. But it was tough. It was an internal battle, Mitch, to be
Been there, Greg. Been there.
Exactly. I was with you for a Morrison game that was very gut-wrenching for you as well. So it's that internal struggle as a journalist to do the job. And I did it. I did it, but it was tough. So I want Jade Nord to know that the internal struggle was real that day on the Dunlap turf. So anyway, side tangent aside, should we jump into the Northwest Upstate Illini here?
Yes, we should.
All right. The marquee matchup in that one, Lena Winslow gets the 48-27 win over Dupec. Gage Dunker, 356 yards, 5 touchdowns. Cooper Hoffman had 329 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not quite enough for the Rivermen. Panthers tie an NUIC record for consecutive wins with 25 now. That's Coach Rick Aaron's 240th win all time.
Can you guess what the IHSA record is for consecutive wins?
Oh man. Would it be?
I know the number, but I can't remember the team. So while you think of it, I'm going to look it up.
Okay. My guess would be like one of those Addison Driscoll teams that won so many state championships. Oh, okay. Joliet Catholic?
Nope.
All right, I get one more guess. I'll say.
You'll
what
never
about
get
like
it.
what? Okay, I'll never get it. Go
Take
ahead.
your guess. Take your guess. Maybe you will.
I mean, I'll guess local. I'll go Geneseo. Back when they had some.
You're close with that. Geneseo is second.
Oh, all right.
From 1965 to 1971, Geneseo won 52 consecutive games.
Wow.
The ISSA record from 1966 to 1973 is Pittsfield with 64.
Okay.
That's 7 consecutive undefeated seasons.
I think there was a book written about IHSA football several years ago, and there was a section about Pittsfield.
Okay.
And when I read that part of the book, I thought I had never really been familiar with that school. So I do recall that a little bit. So that's good stuff there.
The maybe the most recent one or modern one would be Boylan Catholic from 2010 to 2012 had 39 straight wins.
Wow, that's one I would not have been on my radar. I wouldn't have called that out. So,
but 64.
yeah,
64 straight wins.
That's incredible. Mitch, did you have your eyes on this one for a little while Friday night?
Yeah, I did. And certainly we had Kyle on the ground there. And just, it was over early. I mean, look, I mean, no disrespect to Dupek because we're big fans of the Riverman program. But it's just, it's hard to really say anything that we haven't said before about what Lena Winslow has been doing for the past couple of years. And quick side note, we talked about Braden Little on the very close almost one list. Gage Dunker is definitely on there, as is Cooper Hoffman. Cooper Hoffman won a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Gage Dunker 356 and 5. I mean, unbelievable in a big game like this. But again, when they slowed down Dupek. Dupek scored late, I believe. They scored a couple touchdowns late, but this was, I think Gage Dunker scored on the second play from scrimmage or something like that. Is that what Kyle said? It was like a 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah, sounds right.
One of the first plays. So, again, it's just so impressive what Lee Win has been able to do week in and week out, playing against a bigger school, a 3A team here, an undefeated 3A team, a really good undefeated 3A team. And they just ran away with it. So we talk a lot about that 1A North bracket, and the exception is Lee Win because it still runs through them. The whole 1A state is going to run through them this year the way that they've been playing.
Yep. So they sit on top of the Northwest Upset Illini. No surprise. That's kind of what we expect. They're up there right with Forreston. That's the other game we're kind of waiting to see here. But I will say that I think that this win over Lena Winslow really shows not just me. I think it shows a lot of people that Lee Win may be above and beyond anybody in the conference. I mean, Forreston still has a chance to play that spoiler. And there's certainly, they've earned their wins too. But just the way that Dupek has won their games has been really impressive. So you never know what happens on, any given Friday night. But
we've seen it before with Forreston and with Lee Winslow. So it's, again, not saying that Lee Win is just this, uncatchable beast, but they play like it, and it's hard to see how they get caught, but it can happen because it has before.
One of the best Friday nights on this podcast was week 9 a few years ago when you texted me freaking out that Forreston pulled off the win. So yeah, it's certainly possible.
I just noticed this, so I want to say it before I forget. But now Forreston leads with the top opponent record. Their opponents have 16 wins remaining here in their last 3 weeks. They play GCMS, which is 5-1, Dupek 5-1, and then Lena 6-0. So
wow, yeah.
We'll get to Forreston in a minute. 6-0, playing great. The absolute hardest part of the schedule, maybe the hardest remaining 3 games of anyone we cover.
Yeah, that's a gauntlet. Yeah, to end there. So they've certainly looked good. They'll have to prove it. They'll have to beat some good teams down the way here. Yep. We'll get to them in a second, but Fulton had a win over Galena 18-7. The only leading by 5. Balin Damehoff picked off a Galena pass late in the fourth quarter. That set up a steamer touchdown to seal the win. Dom Kramer threw a 16-yard touchdown pass to Damehoff. He also threw a 14-yard touchdown pass to Jacob Husengay to lead the Steamers. AJ Boardman had a 29-yard Fulton touchdown as well. So another win for Fulton.
4 in a row.
Yeah, 4 in a row. I was going to say, after that tough start with 2 really quality opponents, they're now sitting at 4-2. So right up there in the mix.
Yeah, with Dupek coming into town, and then they got to go to Knoxville. So finishing with West Carroll, so I don't have any doubt that they'll get to 5 wins. But if they can pick up a win here in these next 2 weeks, I think that'll go a long way for Fulton.
Oh, but Mitch,
regardless, a really impressive, performance from Coach Lower these past 4 weeks, because a tough start to play Forreston and Lee Win in your first 2 weeks, and then to win your next 4. So great job from the Steamers.
Mitch, maybe I'm going to Fulton this week.
Hey.
Fulton Dupek, that'd be a fun one to check out.
You could do Fulton Morrison.
Yeah, definitely could do that. Yeah, there you go. There you go. The
So
problem is, man, that's two great matchups, and I'm going to have to leave one early on. That's the
yeah,
bummer.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, but
Well,
that's
we got some WRMJ coverage at Morrison, so maybe go to Fulton, and then I don't know where you can go from there.
yeah. Sometimes if I go to Fulton, though, they want to send me back over the river into Iowa, and I don't really want to cover it. All right, couple more scores here. Forston, as we talked about, they get the win 22-8 over Stockton. Owen Mulder, 71 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Micah Nelson equaled him with 71 yards rushing. Caleb Sanders also had 38 yards and a rushing touchdown. So credit to Forston. Like we said, they continue to get the job done. They're not necessarily putting up the big time flashy scores, but they are continuing to win football games. So grind it out, get the wins. They're sitting at 6-0.
Yeah, and running by committee, so it's hard to really lock in on any player when you're doing prep work because they've got a handful of guys who can get the job done. So yeah, doing Forston things. They're 6-0. They're in the playoffs, regardless of what they have here coming up in the next 3 weeks. But again, it's a great test for them to see how they stack up against the rest of the 1A.
Yeah, as always, when we start talking week 7, 8, 9, I love the matchups in the NUIC. You always want to see some of these big tests, and these are what we've been waiting for.
And on the flip side, for Stockton sitting at 2-4, I think they can win their next 3 games. I really do.
What do we got here?
So they got West Carroll. Again, no offense to the folks in Savannah. Shout out the original Mannies. They'll get a win there, and then they play Dakota and Galena. So 2 teams that I don't want to say they've been kind of, well, yeah, I guess. Again, no offense. Galena's lost 4 in a row, and Dakota has 1 win against a winless West Carroll, but they had lost 4 in a row prior to that. So we've been impressed with Stockton. We've been impressed the way that they played. They played really well against Lena Winslow. They played well against Fulton, and then got their win against EPC. So and tough here against Forston. So I do think that we might see Stockton in the playoffs.
I think that week 9 matchup potentially between Stockton and Galena could be something to watch for. Now, that being said, it'll be Stockton, I think, would be playing for the playoff spot. Galena still has Lena Winslow. Yeah. So that's tough for Galena, but I think that Galena would have the chance to potentially play spoiler for a Stockton team looking for that playoff berth. So
Sure.
that'll be something to watch for there. Couple more scores. Eastland Pearl City 40-15 over Aurora Central Catholic. Jackson Kemple rushed for 104 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries. Draven Zaire rushed for 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Will Burchin added 37 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns as well. 2 touchdowns on 6 carries. So good job there by Will.
Yep.
That's Eastland Pearl City's first win of the year. So congratulations to the Wildcats there. They got Lena Winslow this week. Then they have West Carroll and Dakota. So there could be a few more, maybe a couple more wins there to build a little confidence heading into next year.
Yeah, I think so. That would match their record from last year. So yeah, good for them to get their first win of the year. It's been a tough road for them, but like you said, still some opportunity to finish strong.
Yep. And you also had Dakota getting the win 48-0 over West Carroll. So let's move into week 7. Dakota at Galena, Forston taking on Gibson City Melvin Sibley, Fulton Fulton staying at home and hosting Dupec. You have Eastland Pearl City at Lena Winslow, and West Carroll taking on Stockton. So looking at these matchups, every year, the last few years, we've had this Forston, Gibson City, Melvin, Sibley matchup, the non-conference matchup. It's always a good one. And this year is no different. It's 6-0 Forston against a 5-1 GCMS. So that should be a good one to start here.
Are they 1A or are they 2A?
I think that they will be 1A. They're always kind of on the border, right?
Yeah, we'll have to check on that. And I just said that Forston held the record, we don't really cover GCMS, but their remaining 3 opponents have 17 wins. They play 2 undefeated teams, then they play a 5-1 Hayworth team. So tough sledding here for the Falcons there in GCMS. So yeah, this will be a great game. It's always a classic matchup. 2 really historically good teams that you always think about when you think about small school Illinois football. So Forest at home, we'll see what they can do against a good Falcons team.
Yep. And I think the other big matchup here is Dupec going on the road to Fulton. I think this is a great opportunity for one of these teams to really kind of prove themselves. Great opportunity for Dupec to bounce back, grab a win here, kind of get back on the right track. And for Fulton, they want to keep things going here. The tough start against Lena Winslow and Forreston. Now they have a chance, a good opportunity here against a good Dupec team, to catch them and really put themselves on the upper echelon of this Northwest Upstate Illini Conference.
Yeah, 2 good quarterbacks there in that matchup with Kramer and Hoffman. So I don't foresee any surprises anywhere else, but I think Lena Winslow Stockton will all pick up wins. So the other 2 games might be toss ups. So looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, I would say go to Fulton because I think that'll be a good game against Dupec.
Yeah, that one I like that one. That may be where I end up. We'll have to see what the what the swings look like, where Dazzo needs me to go, what they need shot. But that's a good one.
Yeah, but if they try and send you to Clinton, just don't.
Okay. Well, quickly we'll look through the standings here. Like we said, Forreston and Lena Winslow are on top, sitting at 6-0, 5-0 in conference play. I guess Forreston's actually 6-0 in conference play. They have their non-conference game this week. Dupec's right behind them at 5-1. You have Fulton at 4-2. And then going down the way, Galena sitting at 2-3 in conference play and 2-3 overall. Stockton 1-4 in conference play, 2-4 overall. So, like we said, it's that Forreston, Lee Win, Dupec, and Fulton all trying to make, statements, trying to get their names up near the top of this conference, this very tough Northwest Upstate Illini. All right, well, let's take one more quick break to thank a sponsor, and we'll be right back talking 8-man football.
The Quad City's first and only fantasy football show, For Fantasy's Sake, has you all covered when it comes to all of your fantasy football needs. The guys come to you live every Sunday morning during the football season from 10 to 11:30. They've got the best analysis, rankings, DFS, and gambling advice between the Rock and Mississippi Rivers. So tune into For Fantasy's Sake every Sunday during the football season from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
Welcome back to View from the West podcast. We're wrapping things up with 8-man football. And before we jump into the results and the games coming up next week, let's talk about the NUIC 8-man state rankings, courtesy of NUICfootball.com. You have Amboy up at number 1. They're undefeated at 6-0. Number 2, Milledgeville at 5-1. Number 3, Polo, 5-1. Number 4, St. Thomas More got the big win we'll talk about this week. They're undefeated 6-0. Ridgewood has been playing tough. They're number 5 at 4-2. Number 6 is Martinsville. Number 7, South Beloit. Number 8 is South Fork. Number 9, Milford Cisna Park. And number 10, Flanagan Cornell Woodland. A couple teams receiving votes, West Prairie and Pawnee, both at 4-2. So we'll start with the big matchup. It was number 1 and number 2 in the state rankings in 8-man. It stays that way as Amboy holds the number 1 spot. They get the 32-20 win over Milledgeville. Great, much anticipated game, hyped up. Amboy, they get the job done here. Reading the article from the Sauk Valley newspaper coverage from Cody Cutter, Amboy's Landon Welchel said that last week's win over Ridgewood, which was a really close game, kind of served as a wake-up call for them, and that they were ready to go this week. They were fired up to play this Milledgeville team. Amboy jumped out early. They led 16-6 at half, but this Milledgeville team would not go away. Connor Nye connected with Carter Livingood for a 44-yard touchdown. In the third, they narrowed it down to a 16-12 lead for the Clippers. Then it was Nye adding a 5-yard touchdown run. That would give the Missiles the 20-16 lead, but Amboy continued to have the answers. Welchel with a 56-yard touchdown run. That would grab the lead back for the Clippers for good. He would go on to lead the Clippers 214 yards, 3 touchdowns. So a great effort from Landon Welchel and this Clipper team to get the job done against a good Milledgeville team.
Yeah, one of the most anticipated matchups that we saw coming for a couple of weeks. So great win for Amboy. As you mentioned, they had a tough game against Ridgewood last week. Maybe set them up for success here against Milledgeville. So, but not to take anything away from what Milledgeville has been doing this year, and this could be a potential state championship game. A rematch could happen in the state championship, I should say, depending on how everything shakes out. So maybe not the last time we see these two really good teams play against each other this year.
Yeah, honestly, I hope not. I hope they play again because it'd be great. Right. I think they play great football. I think this is a great win for Amboy because I think a lot of even though they were the number 1 ranked team, I think Milledgeville was kind of pulling in some of the headlines. I think after that win over Polo a few weeks back, I think Milledgeville was, the team kind of maybe not favorite in this game, but I think they were getting a lot of the publicity, especially considering that, Amboy had just played that close game against Ridgewood. So, but there you go. That, that served as the
It's why you play the game, I guess. But I mean, deservedly so for that praise from Milledgeville because they've been really, really good this year. They're still going to finish out really strong and be a contender moving into the playoffs.
Yep. Couple more scores here from the 8-man division. Polo gets the big win, 64-0 over Unity Christian. Mitch, one of my favorite stats ever is when a player can rush for a touchdown, can pass for a touchdown, and have a receiving touchdown. The trifecta, Brock Soltow does it. He rushes for 124 yards and a touchdown on 5 carries. He caught 2 passes for 32 yards and a touchdown, and he threw a 48-yard touchdown pass to Noah Dewey on his only passing attempt of the game. I love it. I love when a player can do that. It's great.
Didn't that just happen? Was it Soltow who just did it recently?
Well, we were talking about Soltow has
his season stats.
His season stats included all 3. Yep. So
I still could swear maybe it was not an 8-man game that somebody did that. But yeah, you said it. When you have that sort of versatility and you can score multiple different ways for your team, we like that a lot.
Yep. Well, a few more. Ridgewood bounces back. They get the big 44-0 win over Peoria Heights. Martinsville gets the 26-6 win over Blue Ridge. West Central gets a victory over Bushnell Prairie City, 36-34. Isaiah, exactly. I was just going to say that's a nice win for the Heat. Isaiah Stephen gets 365 yards and 5 touchdowns. So great effort from him and the Heat. Congrats on that win. And the game on Saturday, the game that Edgy Tim was at. Tim took in his first ever 8-man football game, walking the sidelines in South Beloit. St. Thomas More 58-28 over the Sobos. So a nice win for St. Thomas More. They're, the 8-man division always kind of runs through the Northwest Upstate Illini. But man, I'll tell you what, this St. Thomas More team looks really tough this year.
Can I ask an important question?
Yes.
What's a Sobo?
I believe South Beloit.
It's that's their nickname though?
Yeah, the Sobos. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it I want to
it's like a Duhawk from Loris.
Could be. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay. Just wondering. That's all.
That is an important question. So, but St. Thomas More looking good. They get the win.
Yeah.
South Beloit's having a good season. They just fall a little bit short against a good team here. So let's move down the way into week 7. Amboy at AFC. River Ridge goes up against Quest Academy. Milledgeville at Pawnee. Polo goes up against Blue Ridge. So, not necessarily the huge marquee matchups this week, but that Milledgeville one against Pawnee's sitting at 4-2. So it's a road challenge for the Missiles to bounce back here.
Yeah, see if they can, bounce back mentally after a tough loss. So yeah, they've proven that they can do it all season. So I like the Missiles here going on the road. But yeah, like you said, we're winding down here in the 8-man season, but this week doesn't have a whole lot of great matchups, but I just keep thinking towards the playoffs because we're going to see a lot of the great rematches that we had during the regular season once we get there.
A team we talked about making a playoff push, Orangeville, they've won 2 in a row. They have Rockford Christian Life this week on the road. Rockford Christian Life is 3-3. Orangeville's 3-3. So that's a big matchup for them. They have Amboy in week 8. And then they have Peoria Quest in week 9, who's 0-6 right now. So I think these two matchups, sandwiched around that Amboy game are big. You want to get this win this week against Christian Life, and then hopefully you can grab that win against Quest Charter if you don't win against Amboy, if you don't pull the upset there, to give Orangeville that shot at the playoffs. River Ridge, like we said, they'll host Quest Academy this week. They're sitting at 3-3. They also have West Prairie in week 8 and Alden Hebron in week 9. So I think there's a chance that they can get to 5 wins, be a playoff team as well. So, and Polo this week will go on the road, like we referenced, to Blue Ridge. Blue Ridge is Polo's at home against Blue Ridge. Blue Ridge is 2-4 on the season. They have Quest Academy in week 8, and they have Amboy in week 9. That should be a fun week 9 matchup when you're looking at Polo and Amboy there. So, all right, Mitch, I think that about wraps us up this week.
Sounds like we got through it all, Greg. Just kind of looking back at what we're going to see this week. I don't know if there's a ton of marquee games, but Western Big Six, Quincy and Sterling, I think is going to be a lot of fun. You move into the track, you've got Morrison and Rock Ridge, LLC, you've got, I'll say it's Stark County and Princeville, NUIC, Fulton, and Dupec. So, there's a lot of, still a lot to play for, even though we're getting into week 7. A lot to play for a lot of teams, and looking forward to seeing how things shake out.
Yeah. What do you say maybe next week, Mitch? We'll do a little homework. Maybe we find some teams from outside of our area that we're looking at in each of the classes. Mainly we're looking, when we look playoffs, we're looking at 1A through 4A or 5A, but we'll certainly, look up at the, what Quincy might face in their bracket. But what do you say we start looking at the playoff picture and seeing some teams that we can educate our listeners on, teams to watch for?
Yeah, well, it's never too early to start prepping for the NUIC playoff preview show.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also just to get, like you said, if it's Quincy or if it's Moline or some of these schools that play higher classes, and they'll play against teams that we don't even know where they are. I think that's a good idea to kind of, we got a good handle on things here. Let's say that. So we should start branching out just to see what we might be seeing here in 3 weeks time. Crazy.
Yep. Well, that'll be our homework for next week. But before we get to that, we'll have the instant reacts, of course, on Friday night. It'll be a good one. We'll bring in the guys from WRMJ, Ty Taylor and Jim Taylor. Both the Taylors will be covering the games in the track. They'll be here to talk about them. We'll, of course, have the guys from the Score will be here. Mitch, you'll be here. So it'll be another full boat, another packed show, but it'll be good. So thank you to everyone who tunes in, who listens to the Instant Reacts, who tunes in every week and listens to this podcast. We really appreciate your listening. We really appreciate your support. And Mitch, it's been really cool. I know, just for me, going out to games every week now, and, each week I go out and there's people that recognize me or recognize us from doing the podcast and putting out those videos. So it's been really cool. And people come up and say they love the show. They listen every week. So,
Yeah, we as we always say, we thank everyone for the support. I've heard it more this year than in years past. So yeah, we really appreciate that you guys enjoy the coverage and the work that we've put into it, and we enjoy doing it.
All right, Mitch. We'll be talking throughout the week, but we'll be texting back and forth on Friday night, and we'll be jumping in the studio to record the instant reacts on the late Friday and see where these games end up.
Yep, that's right.
That'll do it for this week's episode of View from the West. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to go out to Apple Podcasts or Podbean and subscribe so you can follow along, and downloads will come automatically every week. You can follow along on Twitter at ViewFromWestPod. You can also email me if you're interested in being a sponsor, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.